Our show isn't just about building the cars, it's about helping out the family, getting that car back on the road so that these people can kind of move on with their lives.
What really happened to Heather Storm from Garage Squad, and why did she leave the popular automotive show? Heather Storm served as a co-host on the series for 5 seasons before departing. As a matter of fact, she made the decision to leave on her own terms rather than being let go by the network. Following her exit, she has remained active in the automotive and adventure space through various projects. This video explores the real reasons behind her departure, her contributions to Garage Squad, and what she's been up to since leaving the show. The real reason Heather Storm left Garage Squad. Heather Storm leaving Garage Squad had people confused for no real reason. At first glance, a lot of people assumed something dramatic must have happened, right? Maybe some behind-the-scenes tension, maybe a disagreement, maybe something messy. But then a clearer picture started to come out, and it turned out to be much more straightforward than all the noise made it seem. Heather Storm actually made the decision to leave on personal terms after 4 solid seasons on the show. That alone already changes the tone of the whole conversation. Instead of a forced exit, the situation looked more like a personal choice shaped by growth and timing. And when looking at Heather Storm's personality and career style, the decision started to make even more sense. This is someone known for being adventurous, always exploring, always looking for the next thing. So the real question becomes, would someone like that really stay in one place forever? From what was shared, the contract had reached a natural end, and at the same time, Superjacket Productions was also considering a new direction for the show. That alone might make some people pause and wonder, was the decision mutual or one-sided? But everything pointed toward alignment rather than conflict. The choice not to renew the contract matched perfectly with Heather Storm's own plans moving forward. So instead of tension, there was timing. And sometimes timing is everything, right? Not every exit needs drama behind it. Sometimes a chapter simply closes because both sides are ready for something new. Now here is where things got a little messy, not because of the decision itself, but because of how the news came out. Motor Trend made the official announcement about Heather Storm leaving and Christy Lee stepping in as the new co-host. Sounds normal at first, but then something unexpected happened. Heather Storm later shared that there was no prior awareness about the timing of that announcement. Just think about that for a second. Imagine finding out that big news about a personal career move has already been shared publicly before getting the chance to say anything personally. Would that not feel a bit strange? That moment alone created confusion among fans because it made the whole situation look like a sudden replacement rather than a planned transition. That unexpected timing led to a wave of speculation. People started asking questions. Was there a fallout? Was there a disagreement? Was Heather Storm pushed out? But when Heather Storm finally addressed everything, the tone was calm, respectful, and very clear. An apology was shared for not being the one to break the news first, which already showed a level of care for the audience. Then came a reflection on the experience. Heather Storm described the journey on Garage Squad as something amazing, especially being able to help car owners bring dream builds to life. That part really stood out, because beyond the cameras and the show format, there were real people involved, real stories, real connections. And according to what was said, those connections meant a lot. There was also a sense of acceptance in the message. A simple but honest truth was shared that all good things eventually come to an end. That line alone carried a lot of weight. Because when looking at any long-running experience, whether in television or life, nothing lasts forever. So the question becomes, is ending something always a bad thing, or can it simply be part of growth? In this case, it clearly leaned toward growth, and instead of bitterness or negativity, there was support. Heather Storm even wished Christy Lee and the rest of the Garage Squad team success moving forward. That kind of response says a lot about the situation, does it not? Then came the network's response, which added another layer of clarity. A formal statement from Motor Trend, delivered by David Lee, acknowledged Heather Storm's contributions over the 4 seasons. Gratitude was expressed, and well wishes were sent for future plans. Nothing in that message hinted at conflict or tension. In fact, the tone felt appreciative and respectful. That alone helped settle a lot of the earlier speculation, because when both sides speak positively after a separation, it usually points to a clean break rather than a messy one. Another important detail came from the relationships on set. There was no sign of issues between Heather Storm and co-hosts Joe Zolper and Bruno Massel. Social media interactions after the departure continued to show mutual respect and support, and that detail matters more than people often realize. Because if there had been any real tension, it would likely show up in those interactions, even subtly. But nothing like that appeared. So again, the question comes up, where did all the initial rumors even come from? Most of it came down to timing and perception. When putting everything together, the situation becomes much easier to understand. A contract reached its end. A production team considered a new direction. And at the same time, Heather Storm wanted to explore new opportunities. Then, an early announcement created confusion, which led to speculation. But once actual statements came out, everything pointed toward a respectful and natural transition. No drama, no fallout, just a shift. And when looking at it from a bigger perspective, it almost feels like a reminder. Not every exit needs to be dramatic. Not every change needs to come from conflict. Sometimes, a person simply decides to move forward. Sometimes, timing lines up in a way that makes that decision easier. And sometimes, the only real issue is how the news is shared, not the decision itself. So in the end, you can't help but wonder, was this truly a shocking departure that caught everyone off guard? Or just a normal career move that slowly got misunderstood as the story spread? The more you dig into it, the more the lines begin to blur. And what once seemed obvious suddenly feels a lot more complicated. There's more beneath the surface than most people realize. And trust me, you'll want to stay right here till the very end, because Heather Storm's journey on Garage Squad reveals everything. Heather Storm's journey on Garage Squad. A really interesting journey unfolded when Storm stepped into the spotlight as a co-host on Garage Squad. And honestly, the whole thing almost feels like one of those moments where preparation quietly meets opportunity at the perfect time. Think about this for a second. How many people actually get a chance like that and are bold enough to step forward without hesitation? The show had put out a call during the 2nd season, looking for a female host who truly loved cars and was not afraid to get hands dirty inside a garage. And that alone already set a certain tone. This was not about appearances or just talking on camera. This was about real passion, real effort, and real skill. Storm heard about the opportunity through a manager, and instead of second-guessing or overthinking, a quick decision was made to go for it. A self-tape was recorded, simple but honest, just talking about cars, sharing knowledge, showing real excitement. Now pause for a moment and think about this. How often does something so simple end up opening such a big door? That authenticity stood out, and that genuine love for cars made all the difference, leading straight to landing the role. Once inside the show, Storm worked alongside experienced names like Bruno Massel, a world champion National Hot Rod Association driver, and Joe Zolper, a lead mechanic with serious hands-on expertise. Now imagine stepping into that kind of environment, surrounded by professionals who live and breathe cars every single day. Would that feel intimidating? Or would that feel like stepping exactly where everything was always meant to be? For Storm, everything seemed to click naturally. And a big reason for that comfort came from years of learning that started long before any camera ever showed up. That foundation really goes all the way back to childhood, and this part of the story adds so much depth. At just 8 years old, a red 1979 El Camino entered the picture. brought home by a father who clearly saw something important in teaching real-life skills early. Growing up between Philadelphia and Montana, time spent in the garage became more than just passing moments. It became a training ground. Tools were not seen as something complicated or off-limits. Tools became familiar, almost like an extension of daily life. A father made sure both a daughter and a brother learned how to handle manual work, fix things, build things, and solve problems without fear. Now ask this: how many people actually grow up with that kind of hands-on learning so early in life? That kind of upbringing builds confidence in a quiet but powerful way. By the time Garage Squad came into the picture, working with tools was not something new or intimidating. It was already second nature. During time on the show, Storm appeared in about 45 episodes, starting from August 11, 2015. And each episode carried a mix of mechanical work and emotional storytelling. Most car builds lasted about a week, which sounds quick on the surface, but anyone familiar with restoration work knows that kind of timeline demands focus, teamwork, and serious effort. Storm did not just stand around or play a light role. Real involvement in the builds took place, contributing to the physical work while also helping bring out the deeper meaning behind each car. And this is where things get even more interesting. The show was not just about fixing vehicles. The show was also about people, about stories, about moments in life tied to those cars. Think about it. How many times does a car represent something bigger than just transportation? Sometimes a car holds memories, struggles, milestones, even loss or recovery. Storm often highlighted how the show helped individuals going through difficult moments, where a restored car symbolized a fresh start or a way forward. Fans quickly picked up on something special, and that connection did not happen by accident. A bright personality, combined with a strong work ethic, created a presence that felt real and relatable. There was no fear of stepping into the same space as male co-hosts and doing the same level of work. Hands got dirty, tools were used, challenges were faced head-on. Now ask this: how often does someone manage to balance skill, confidence, and warmth all at once, without forcing any of it? That natural energy made a strong impression, and it showed in how audiences responded. Enthusiasm for cars was clear, but just as important was the ability to connect with people on a deeper level. Over time, that connection turned into genuine appreciation from fans, and that made a later departure from the show feel even heavier. When someone brings both skill and heart into a space like that, absence becomes noticeable. There is always that question that lingers afterward: what made that presence stand out so much? The answer seems simple but also rare. Authentic passion, strong roots, willingness to work, and the ability to understand both machines and people at the same time. All of those pieces came together in a way that felt effortless, even though a lot of effort clearly existed behind the scenes. Looking at the full journey, everything connects in a way that almost feels planned, even if it was not. Early lessons in a garage, a father's guidance, a bold decision to submit a simple self-tape, and a chance to step into a major platform all came together at the right moment. And maybe the biggest question of all sits right here. Was that success really just luck? Or was it years of quiet preparation finally meeting the right moment? It's a thought you can't shake. And where that journey leads next might surprise you. Stay with me, because this next part reveals everything. What Heather Storm is doing now, after Garage Squad. After stepping away from the show, Heather Storm did not slow down at all. And that part honestly makes the whole journey even more interesting to talk about. A lot of people might expect a quiet break after leaving something big, but that did not happen here. Instead, a whole new chapter opened, and this chapter felt even more personal and creative. Work shifted into something that blended cars, travel, lifestyle, and storytelling in a way that felt very natural. Does that not sound like someone who simply refused to stay boxed into one lane? One of the first things that stood out involved a YouTube travel series called Drive Yourself Local. This was not just another travel show where someone jumps on a plane and rushes through big cities. This felt different. This series focused on small towns across America, and everything happened behind the wheel of a 1965 Ford Mustang. Now just imagine that for a second. A classic car, open roads, quiet towns, and hidden places that most people would never think to visit. Does that not already feel more meaningful than the usual fast-paced travel content? The idea centered on slowing down and actually taking in the journey instead of rushing to a destination. Preparation became part of the experience because driving a classic car is not always smooth or predictable. That alone added a layer of authenticity. There was also a clear message about enjoying things the way they used to be, almost like stepping into a different time. Who would not want to experience America in that kind of way? Beyond hosting and traveling, work also expanded behind the scenes into production. Taking on the role of executive producer for projects like Awesome Autos showed a different level of involvement. This was no longer just about being in front of the camera. This was about shaping content, guiding direction, and building something from the ground up. That kind of transition usually takes confidence and vision. Does that not show a deeper understanding of the industry? Then came something even more relaxed and fun: the Man Seeks Adventure podcast. This project brought together Brad Fanshaw and Dave Merrick, and the conversations revolved around cars, food, drinks, travel, and everyday experiences. It had a casual feel, but still carried strong personality. A unique twist came in with the mixology segment in every episode. Each episode included a cocktail demonstration, adding a lifestyle angle that went beyond just talking. That detail made the podcast feel more interactive and enjoyable. Guests also joined in, including interesting personalities and celebrities, which kept conversations fresh and engaging. Does that not sound like the kind of show someone could listen to while just unwinding and learning something new at the same time? At the same time, business ventures started taking shape in a more serious way. Co-founding Black Lab Ventures added another layer to the journey. This was not just a small side project. This company worked as an eco-event business and also handled a boutique wine collection. That combination alone feels unique. Who combines sustainability, events, and fine wine into one brand like that? It showed a strong interest in lifestyle experiences, not just automotive content. On top of that, work as a marketing consultant and creative producer brought in collaborations with brands across food, beverage, travel, and automotive spaces. Campaigns reached hundreds of thousands of people, which showed a strong connection with an audience that trusted and followed the journey. That kind of reach does not happen by accident. Does that not point to consistency and a clear personal brand?
Traveling across the U.S. thinking, oh, let's all pile in the car and go see America. And so there's a lot of nostalgia there, and it's really cool.
Another major shift came with relocation. Moving from Los Angeles to a small town in Colorado marked a big lifestyle change. That kind of move usually says a lot about priorities. Instead of staying in a fast-paced city, life moved closer to nature, open roads, and a quieter environment. That decision also connected perfectly with another project called Heather Storm Off-Road, created in partnership with Best Stop. This series followed off-road adventures in a Ford Bronco and explored a completely different side of car culture. This was no longer about highways and smooth roads. This was about dirt trails, rough paths, and learning from a new community. There was something very real about stepping into a space that required learning and adapting. Does that not make the journey feel even more relatable? Even with all these new directions, one thing remained consistent: a deep connection to driving. Whether behind the wheel of a classic Mustang or a newer Bronco, the philosophy stayed the same. Vehicles were meant to be driven, not just shown. Roads were meant to be explored, not rushed through. Experiences were meant to be felt, not just recorded. That mindset tied everything together in a very simple but powerful way. Looking at everything as a whole, the journey after leaving the show feels less like a step away and more like a step forward into something more personal and meaningful. Travel, cars, business, storytelling, and lifestyle all came together in a way that feels very intentional. Does that not make the entire path more inspiring? With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.